All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Drones Down Under podcast. Tonight we have special guest host Aaron McKay from Aus Aerial Media joining us for the chat this evening. How are we, gentlemen?
Very good, thank you, Ty. Thank you for having me.
That's right. It's always a pleasure, Aaron, to be in your presence. So tonight we're going to cover the Mini 3 versus the Mavic 3 and which is better. Now, you guys have the reins on this because I haven't played with either or. So I'll let you guys take it away.
All right, so you and me, Danny.
It's a boxing match, Mini versus Mavic.
Well, I'm lucky enough to own both the units, the Mini 3 and the Mavic 3 Pro or Cine, sorry.
Fancy.
Yeah, I know, right? Look, I'm happy to just sort of jump into it. I got to be honest, the Mavic 3, when I first got it, and I was one of the very first purchasers of it, was a problematic drone. I really didn't like it, and I lost a lot of faith in it, to be honest.
I've heard that from a lot of people, that there was just a lot of issues on release.
Yeah.
What were some of the issues on the release?
Well, my first Mavic 3 wouldn't connect the RC remote because I bought the RC Pro with it. It wouldn't connect, and it would connect, then it'd drop out, and then it'd come back. So I sent it back to DJI, and I got a new drone, whole new kit, and got that one, updated the current firmware at the time, and then I started having problems with the SD card, the internal SD. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you're wanting to use the ProRes function, which is really one of the main reasons you buy the Cine over
That's the only reason you buy the Cine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that you can use the Apple ProRes codecs on your video files, you have to record to the internal SD card in the drone, and it just wouldn't record. It just wouldn't record the files. So packed it up, sent it back off to DJI again, and my third Mavic 3, which is kind of poetic, I guess, I got back from DJI. I asked them to update the firmware for me. I said, look, I don't want the drone unless you know it's working, unless you're confident that it's actually working. They said, oh, well, we'll have to take it out of the box and break the seal. So I don't care. If it comes back to me again and it's not fully operational, then just give us my money back.
Yeah.
And touch wood, thank goodness it was. And I've been happy with it since. And then since the latest firmware update, which is, I think it was late June 2022, it's been great. I've really found that it's hit the point where I think it was meant to have been at the beginning. So now I'm building my trust back up in it. The battery life is fantastic. You know, I'm punching out easily 30, 40 minutes from a single battery.
That's awesome.
That's nuts.
Yeah, which is really nice. And the image quality has always been exceptional. Even from the one that wasn't working, or both of them that weren't working, the image quality that it produced is very, very good. It's portable, it's functional, you know, you can chuck it in your bag and away you go. So I'm starting to get that trust back in the drone now and using it much more commercially.
So obviously now it's all up and running. You're pretty happy with it as it stands.
Yeah, and the zoom, having a zoom function on your drone, which I know has been available in the enterprise drones, if we're talking the DJI series, it's been available in the enterprise series, but nobody really used those. You know, the Mav 3 is really the first drone that has come out that's giving you full zoom functionality. Yes, you can't record RAW files. You can't record your video files in your Apple ProRes, but the high-res JPEGs with a 7 times optical zoom makes such a difference. It's really good.
Awesome.
No need to change lenses now when you've actually got it all in one drone, right?
Exactly. And, you know, that's kind of hard to change lenses if you put a wide-angle lens on and you're 100 meters up and, you know, within visual line of sight away, and you go, I really like the other one, so you got to bring it back, turn to that. Now you've got that option, and it's a great function.
So would you say it really covers a lot of bases in certain forms of, you know, what type of compositions you're after and what type of, you know, shots you actually are aiming to get?
Yeah, and I think that's something drones not been missing, but not able to do because, there's so much in such a small package. Traditionally with Mav2s or any of the previous drones, you just physically have to fly closer. And generally the lenses are quite wide. There are 24, 22 mil, which if you put that in, old camera terms, you're probably looking at 35 mil lenses. But from 500, 600, 700 meters away, that's quite wide. And having that functionality to be able to just go, look, let's just have a look. And you zoom in, just a little dial button on the controller. You zoom in, don't like it, come back out. Or you come closer and zoom in, or you change up that distance and you change up the zoom function. It really kind of helps with with your composition.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome. So it's been a nice function to sort of change it up and get used to, rather than having to fly in and get too close or not be able to get that close because of restrictions with 30 meters and that sort of stuff.
And I suppose with a lot of the other prior drones that did have zoom, there was a lot of digital zoom as well, not optical, which anyone who has used digital zoom knows how horrible it is. And there's a few exceptions to that, but there's not very many.
Not very many, yeah.
Not DJI.
No. And I mean, look, digital zoom, it's a nice function to have, but I mean, you might as well just take the photograph and zoom it in on Photoshop or your editing program. It's totally redundant actually being on the drone. Just popping the sensor.
Yeah.
So,
well, do you want to throw it over the red corner, Danny, and give us your first impression of the Mini 3?
Everything the Mavic's not. Look, I love the Mini 3. Same thing. It started out not really buggy, nowhere close to as buggy as the Mavic 3. Had a little few issues, range, overheating, almost like a
overheating.
When you look at more up there, so to keep the weight down, they took out the internal fan. So it's great when you're still flying, but when you're sitting, on a desk trying to update.
Doing a firmware update.
Exactly. So I've got a tiny little fan back here to put in front of it.
That was a bit of a design fault.
Yeah. But now on the recent firmware update, as of same thing actually about a week ago, or not even, it fixed issues that people have in the range where people couldn't get more than 100 meters even. But now it's getting good range, not overheating. Biggest upsell on the Mini, hands down, has to be that vertical camera where the camera can actually turn 90 degrees.
If you're a social media queen influencer,
you have the exact same reaction there.
He's the mole.
You're talking to two photographers. We hate the vertical.
It's all for social media, TikToks and Instagram. That's what the Mini is pretty much made for. You got long life battery.
Yeah.
It's only 12 megapixels with a 48 megapixel mode using the quad bay sensor.
Now, can I ask you a question about that, Danny?
Yes.
The quad bay sensor, the way that it works is it's 12 megapixel, 12 megapixel, 12 megapixel, 12 megapixel.
Yep.
So it interlaces 4 photographs into one. How do you find it?
At first, I was skeptical because I'm like, whatever, it's still 12 megapixel. Now, I rate it. A raw 48 megapixel image, look, it's still a tiny sensor in the end, but the quality out of that, if you're doing things like real estate, shoot everything in 48 megapixel. And now with the new update, it doesn't have that delay of like 2-3 seconds after taking the shot. It's pretty much instant now.
Look, I completely agree. I've got the Mavic, the Mini 3 as well, and saw the 48 megapixel. I went, oh, God, it's just another one of these gimmick things.
Exactly.
And I've actually 48 megapixel on the Air 2S, and I really wasn't happy with it, especially in the highlights. It always loses out detail in the highlights. And I took a 12 megapixel RAW file and the same photograph, 48 megapixel JPEG on the Mini 3, and I was so impressed.
Yeah, okay.
They really have, whatever they've done back end, whatever the algorithm is, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I wondered how that would go as well. I mean, all the information, like anything that's sort of, I guess, faking it in a way, you question how well it's going to go, but it seems the feedback is good.
Well, to give an example, I shoot ground-based with a Canon R5, the new R5 mirrorless, and that's a 42 megapixel sensor.
Does that mean the Mini's better because it's 48?
No, but the file size from the R5 and from the 48 megapixel on the Mini, very similar. About 100 megs on the disk.
Jeez. Okay.
So really, they're really doing a good job with it. I'm really very impressed with the 48 megapixel on the Mini 3.
What was it? There's a drone guy in the States, original Durbo. He took a photo with his A7S3,
Yep.
A7 III, sorry, and the Mini, put both photos side by side.
Yep.
You couldn't tell the difference.
No.
Especially for social media,
Yep.
you're never going to know.
Oh, you're never going to know social. But even for high-res prints, for whatever you need it for, they've really done a good job on it, I think.
Would you actually recommend, a 48 megapixel image off a Mini? Would you blow it up to a reasonable size for a print?
Yeah, absolutely. I've blown up reasonable sized images with a Mavic Air.
Wow.
Okay.
The original Mavic Air.
Shit.
And I've produced.
Little Tassie Devil.
Yeah. Oh, the Angry Hornet. Yeah, that thing was a screamer. Yeah, look, I absolutely feel confident in saying, 1 meter prints or, maybe more. The thing is, though, it produces a square file. So, yeah, the 48 megapixel, it's not, most of the files that come out of the drones are pretty much 16:9 or
16:9 or 3:4. Or,
yeah. I find the 48's it's almost 1:1.
Okay. I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, I don't think it's true 1:1.
Closer to 3 to 4, or
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, and you can't change that for the 48 megapixel.
No, not yet.
Yes.
Wait for the next firmware update.
Yeah, well, it seems like DJI
seems
seemingly has the habit of doing that with releasing something. Then, okay, we'll release a fix for it later.
Yeah.
It's one of those annoying things. I'd rather them have it all done at release rather than letting them all trail through in updates. But
I guess the biggest difference straight off the bat with both the drones is just the size difference. The Mini, you could literally fit in your pocket. Mavic 3, you need a bigger pocket. Especially the Cine version.
Yeah. But they are different drones. They are different products. And that's one thing I think a lot of people get hung up on is, what singular drone do I buy to do everything? You don't. You don't buy one drone to do everything. Each, they're all individual products. They're all specialized. And it doesn't mean that one drone can't do everything else. It's just that if you are looking to do sub 250 gram, the Mini 3 is amazing. It's amazing.
And mind you, the low light out of that little thing is bloody good.
Yeah, okay. Well, put it this way, like me personally, I finally sold off all my personal drone arsenal not too long ago, and I've been looking personally at getting a new one, and I've been tossing up between the Mini 3 and the Mavic 3, both for separate different reasons. Now,
well, lead the viewers through, listeners through a couple of your reasons.
Yeah.
End of the day, I think for me, obviously the Mavic 3 has still some uses professionally for me as well that I think of. I imagine that using them for inspection level and things like that can definitely be done, which obviously I wouldn't expect people to be doing that with the Mini, although I have seen people doing it. Yes, there you go, both here. I'm pretty sure the boss might not be stoked if I bring the Mini to a job though.
Depends where the job is.
That's also true. But obviously the Mini is a selling point of the size. Not that I get much of a chance to do it these days, but I usually do a lot of travel. So the Mini 3 is where it stands out as a good buy. And from a lot of the feedback I've seen and heard is I get a lot more positive out of the Mini 3 than I do out of the Mavic 3. Sorry, Aaron.
Red Bull wins.
But if you guys haven't used both of them, like if we take away the use cases for a second and just think purely on a drone level, what do you think is probably best bang for buck? And forget the Cine mode on the Mavic 3 because no one but you is buying that.
Look, I would say the Mini 3. I'd say the Mini. I think honestly, bang for your buck, and that's what we've got to sort of go back to. At the end, the Mavic 3, you're still going to spend $3,500 on a drone. By the time you've got batteries, drone batteries, you might buy the RC controller, you might not. But realistically, it's going to be $3,500. For $1,500, you've got the Mini 3, you've pretty much got the Fly More kit, and you can get a case and a bag.
And the smart remote as well.
And the smart remote, which I highly recommend.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one thing I'm finding for workflow, is I just have a bag with a drone. I don't need to figure out where the iPad is or my phone's charged or, cables and all that. I just turn the remote on, turn the drone on, away I go. So definitely go the remote. But, it's $2,000 less, realistically.
Exactly. That's a whole nother new camera body right there.
Well, it's another Mini 3 Plus.
Yeah, one for you, one for your partner, or one spare if you're really reckless.
The Mav 3 is a great drone. I really didn't like it, and I was this close to telling DJI, take it back. I don't want it. I just don't trust it.
I think you and many people, Aaron, from some of the things I've seen. But look, I mean, bits of the footage and the images I've seen from both, I mean, at the end of the day, they both produce great quality data out of them.
Yeah.
It's probably obviously going to come down to size and use cases and, what you want to do with them.
Well, and, if the wind's blowing harder than 30 knots, I wouldn't be taking the Mini 3 off.
Hey, I was flying it yesterday in the storm, 41K winds, and it handled it like a boss.
Yeah, doesn't mean that you can't.
Don't do that.
But, for those of us that pay for our drones,
myself.
Yeah.
Was not given by anybody. But
look, needs a tattoo ascended across his forehead.
Mate, there's plenty of skin to cover and
down around the neck.
Still waiting for the one to pop up. But look, seriously, if you're going to fly into wind or anything, fly into the headwind, back with the tailwind.
Absolutely.
Don't lose it. You won't lose the drone that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, just for stability and if you're doing videos, your Mav 3, I've had that in 50 odd kilometre an hour winds, and it handled it. It really did well.
Well, that was something I was always impressed, and this goes from the original Mavic through to the Mavic now. They handle wind a lot better than I first assumed that they would.
Yeah.
So I mean that's something definitely to take away from that.
Yeah.
Well, any sort of closing comments, guys, for the little Mini 3 versus Mavic 3 battle? It sounds like the Mini 3 is slightly winning, and Aaron bowed down to you, Danny. Which
look, it comes down to your budget. Look, if you've got $3,500 to spend on a drone, go and buy the Mav 3. You will not be disappointed with it. Yeah. But who's got $3,500? $1,500 realistically.
Yeah.
The Mini 3 kit. Because you never buy a drone with one battery, ever. And
unless you're waiting for shipping.
Well, unless you're waiting for them to arrive, which
a lot of people have been apparently.
Yeah, month and a half later, I'm still waiting. But look, Mini 3 is really going to get you a very high quality drone for a good price, and make sure you get a high speed card with it. Yes. That's all I think.
Well, that's all pretty relevant then. I mean, I'm looking at the moment, so you never know. I might end up going to pick up a Mini 3 myself.
Well, on the closing note, I reckon all the listeners should let us know in the comments what would they prefer, Mini or Mavic 3, and what's their
definitely. We'd love to hear from some of the listeners and some of their feedback from owners of the Mavic 3 and the Mini 3 as well. Some of the issues they've had or just some of the positives. We're always happy to hear from our listeners. So definitely swing us a message on one of our channels, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Love to hear.
All right, guys. Well, that'll wrap us up for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. So thanks for your time, guys.
Stay close.
Thanks.